Okay.
Okay, Be'ez Hashem. Today's daf is Masechta Kiddushin Daf Ayin Ches, and we will begin on Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Beis. Omalei Papa La Baya. Let me make it big. It's about like 10 lines from the bottom, maybe a little bit more. No, that's about 10 lines from the bottom. Omalei Papa La Baya. So let's just see the psukim. It's very important to see the psukim. In Emor, the Torah tells us it talks about a kohen and a kohen gadol. The Torah says, Isha zoina v'chalola lo yikachu. So Isha zoina, he's not allowed to marry, a kohen is not allowed to marry a zoina. So we can understand that zoina means any lady that had an illegal intercourse with somebody. Let's say a single lady was mazana with a goy. So that makes her a zoina. Chalola is a really undefined term. Chalola we never found that term before in the Chumash. So it's hard to define. We think that halal is the product of an illegal marriage, but it's limited. What the Gemara is going to explain, it's limited to an illegal marriage that a kohen does. For example, a kohen. Yeah, but Yisrael, who's, let's say, does an illegal marriage, a regular yid, that's, let's say, machzir grushasi. He takes back his divorcee, and they have a child, which the Torah says, don't take back your divorcee, and they have a child. That daughter is not a chalala. That daughter could marry a kohen. Chalala is only if a kohen did an illegal thing with and then had a child, a girl. Another kohen cannot marry that lady. And of course, isha grusha isha, a divorcee. Lo yikachi cannot marry. So that's the first part of the parsha talks about a kohen hedyot. The second part of the parsha talks about the second kohen gadol. The Torah says almona ugrusha v'chalala. Now the question is, why does the Torah have to repeat? He's really a kohen gadol, so he is even stronger than a regular kohen hedyot. So the Torah is repeating that a kohen gadol has one thing different. He's not allowed to marry an almona, somebody it's more. And then the Torah says, the Torah defines what halala is. If a kohen gadol does this illegal marriage, his children become chalalim, which people who lost their kedushas kahuna. So let's go. We're beginning again on Ayin Zayin Amud Beis. Approximately 10 lines from the bottom. Papa said to Abaye, a regular yid that was mezana with his sister. Oh, a regular yid was mezana with his sister. Zoina mashavela. He made her a zoina. So that means that could never marry a kohen, right? Because she had an illegal intercourse. Chalala mashvela or ein loy mashvela. Does she also make her a chalala or not? Now, what would be the difference? Because let's say a kohen would marry her, so they get two averis, one because she's a zayna, and two because he's a chalala. So the answer is, the question is, do you say kal v'choim mechayve lavim have chalala mechayve krisis like kal shkein? If she's a product from a chayve lav, let's say a kohen marries a divorcee, that woman becomes a chalala, right? All she did was over a lav. Marrying a kohen, she becomes a chalala. Certainly, the sister who's mezana with her brother certainly should become a chalala because she's doing an issa krisis. Or do you say ein chalala elam issa kahuna? The only way to make someone a chalala is if one party is a kohen. If the man or the woman, man was a kohen and did an illegal marriage or illegal intercourse, then that becomes a chalala. Amalei, so that was the question. So Amalei, Abaye answered to Rav Papa, Ein Issa Chalala Elam Issa Kahuna Balvad. Only from the Issa Kahuna can you create a Chalala. Amar Rava said, Menoha Milsa, the Amar Rabbanan Ein Chalala Elam Issa Kahuna. How do you know? Where did the Rabbanan come up with this idea that Chalala is only if a Kohen did an Aveira? Again, if the Kohen is not only, we learned before, but not only does his daughter if a Kohen did an illegal marriage, let's say the kohen married a grusha, not only does the daughter of that product become a chalala, but the wife becomes a chalala. So how do you know that? The Tanya The Torah does not have to repeat all the lavim, all the people that a kohen gadol cannot marry, and I'll know it for sure that just like a kohen hedyot can't marry it, a plain kohen, certainly the big kohen can't marry it. I would say to myself, all these women are regular also to a kohen hedyot. Certainly that they're also to a kohen gadol. So lama nemra. Why does the Torah repeat itself? Again, in the Chumash, it repeats itself. By a kohen gadol, it says amana grusha chalala zonas elu lo yikach. Why does it have to repeat it? So the Gemara says, so the Torah is telling you that just like when a kohen takes a divorcee, he gets a separate lav. If he takes a zoina, he gets a separate lav. A chalala is a separate lav. They're all different lavim for different types of women. So also a kohen gadol will get a separate lav. If he doesn't have to be a grusha, zoina, chalala in one person, just by having one of these names alone, you get a separate lav if the kohen would marry. Says the Gemara, Pshita, of course, if the kohen gadol would marry any one of them, he gets a lav. Migra Gara, just because he became a kohen gadol, does he have it any worse? That he should be the same halachas that apply by kohen hedyot should also apply by kohen gadol. Ella, the first thing it says, Kishem shekhaluka grusha mezoyin v'chalol mekohen hedyot, kachamona chaluka megrusha v'chalol zara mekohen gadol. Since the first thing the Torah tells you is that there's a new law for a kohen gadol which was not applying by a kohen hedyot, and that is almona. Just like a kohen hedyot gets a separate law if he marries a grusha, so also a kohen gadol will get a separate law if he marries a kohen gadol. Okay, now chalala lamanem. Then why does the Torah repeat a chalala? Well, the chalala is usher already for a kohen hedyot. So why does the Torah repeat chalala is now usher for a kohen gadol? Here's the key. It teaches you ein chalala ela mi'isar kuhuna. To teach you the idea that chalala can only become from a kohen doing an avera. So the Torah repeats the word chalala to be usher by a kohen gadol to teach you that it's all kohen related in order to create a kohen, in order to create a chalala. Zoina lama namar. Why does the Torah say a zoina is also to a kohen gadol? Nama kam zoina, v'nema lahan zoina. It says by a kohen gadol, zoina is also. It says by a kohen hedyot, a zoina is also. Makan zarechulin, aflahalan zarechulin. Just like by a kohen gadol, if he marries a zoina, his children become chalala. So also, if a kohen hedyot marries a zoina, or for that matter, if he marries any of the women that are asa to him, not only does his wife become asa, but Zarai Chulin, his children lose the Kedushas Kuna. Amar Ravasi said, Hilkach, it follows through. Koyin haba al. Now, in a difference to what we learned prior, Yisrael haba al. Now, if a koyin has relations with his sister, so he did an Isser Kares, right? So we go to Ayin Chesam Ra'al, Zoyna Meshavela, Chalala Meshavela. From the first Bia that he did with her, he only made her a Zoyna, because this woman is also to him, not because he's a kohen. A sister is also to you because you're her brother. So right away, if they have that illegal relations, so he made her a zoina, but chalala loy mashavila. He didn't make her a chalala. But now this girl is a zoina. Chazo ba'aleh. Let's say another kohen is mezana with this lady. So now he wasn't supposed to even marry her because she's a zoina. Asa chalala, now she becomes a chalala, and if they would have a child, that child would be a chalala. Amar Rav Yehuda, new concept. Kohen gadol ba'almana. Let's say a kohen gadol marries an almana. How many lavim? How many times will he get malchus? So I thought only one. Comes along Rav Yehuda and says loikish time. He's going to get twice. First, if he does the kiddushin, and the second time is when he goes to chuppah and goes to bia. Achas mishum lo yikach. One pasuk says, "Don't marry these ladies." Achas, one malchus mishum lo yichala. He shouldn't come to bring chalalim. In other words, the Torah is saying that I don't want this marriage to continue on into an intercourse which could potentially bring chalalim, children that lose their kedushas kuna. Says the Gemara, "V'lilka nami mishum lo yichala zare." Let's say if he has a complete intercourse, it could lead into children. So he's not only making her a chalal, he's going to make his child into a chalal. So there should be a third malchus. The third malchus should be making your child into a chalal, and besides making your wife into a chalal. And says the Gemara, you're right. But b'shaloi goma biyase. Let's say he didn't finish the biyah. In other words, he didn't ejaculate. So even just by going in and penetrating, he gets a lav of lo yichala, destroying his wife. But it's not something that will give him malchus for bringing children in this marriage. Mosiv Rava asked the question, Amuna Grusha, if you married Almona, who is a Grusha? Let's say you have a lady, she was an Almona plus a Grusha, okay? And she marries a Kohen Gadol. She gets two malchus. The Kohen Gadol, this lady will get two malchus because there's two names on her. Wait a second, there should be four malchus for the Kohen Gadol. Why? Because each one of them has a lav of lo yichalo. He's making her into a chalala. My love, shei shemesh v'suloi. So you're telling me you get two malchus and that's it? And it says Gemara, no, loy shnei shemesh azeh u'shnei shemesh azeh. You get two malchus for each one of them, for each label that was on this woman. So because she's an almana, you get malchus twice because she's an almana, and you get malchus twice. The kohen gadol will get malchus twice because she's a grusha. Because again, for each one of these people, for each one of these labels, you're making her a chalo, and you're over the lav of lo yichalo. Says the Gemara, let's take a look at the end of the brisa. Grusha v'chalutza ein chayiv alachas. If she's a grusha and a chalutza, so she has two labels on her, she only get one malchus. Oh, why? You should get two. One because of grusha, one because of chalutza, and then two, and another one for grusha, and another one for chalutza. So you should get four. So the Gemara says hachi kama. That's what the brisa means to say. If she's a grusha plus a chalutza, you only get one malchus. Even though l'olam shnei shemes, you get one malchus, but it doesn't mean one malchus. You get two malchus because she's a grusha, but you will not get malchus because she's a chalutza, and that's the point of the brisa. You only chayiv, you're only liable min haTorah because she's a grusha, but because she's a grusha, you're going to get two malchus. But the fact that she's also a chalutza, you're not going to get malchus. Why? Because the Torah only says a divorcee you can't marry, but someone who got a chalitza, the Torah doesn't discuss. So therefore, the chalitza derabbanan. Chalitza is only derabbanan. So the Gemara asks, is it only derabbanan? V'atanya, we learned in the Brisa, grusha ein le'ele grusha. Torah says a grusha is also to a kohen hedyon. Chalutza. How do you know a chalutz is also? Talmud loime ve'isha. Ve'isha grusha me'isha lo yikachu. So it says ve'isha. And therefore it's the vav that adds something that's not mentioned in the pasuk, a chalutza. So a chalutza is also aser midaraisa. And says Gemara, not true. Midarabanan ukra asmach b'alma. A chalutza is only aser derabanan. And in the Torah, we just have a smachta, a hint to it in the Torah. But a chalutza is only aser midarabanan for a kohen. Amar Abaya seemed to agree with Rav Yehuda. Kidash, if you mekadesh, let's say a kohen is mekadesh a grusha, just kedushin alone, loiki gives her a kedushin, he gets malchus. Baal, if he takes it the next step and does bia, loiki gets malchus. Kiddush loiki mishum lo yikach. The Torah says don't give kedushin to such a lady, so you get malchus for that. Baal, if you do bia, loiki mishum lo yichala, you get the lalav of lo yichala. So Abaya seemed to go with what Rav Yehuda just said. Rava says no. Rava argues in this whole thing. Only Baal loike. Loy Baal elinok. If you don't have bia with these ladies, you don't get malchus. Only if you have bia, just by giving kedushin alone, you're not going to get malchus. Mishum deksiv, the way you read the pasuk, lo yikach v'lo yichala. It goes together. Don't do kedushin so not to have bia, and make her a halal and have children of halalim. So therefore, the Torah seems to link the kedushin with the lo yichalo, that the only time you'll get malchus is only after you have bia. What's the reason why I don't want you to take this woman? Because you're going to have bia with her, and you're going to be mechalel her and mechalel her children. So Abaya says you get two malchus. Rava says you get one malchus, a kohen with a grusha. So Abaya said would agree, but machse grusha, a regular yid takes back his grusha. Shem kiddush, if he just gives kedushin to her, v'loy baal and didn't do bia, she'ena loika, then you don't get malchus because lekachtu.
The kohen should get a malchus because he is not allowed to take a reisha chalisa lo yikuchi, and he takes it, so he should get the malchus, not the woman.
No. Here we're talking about a regular yid that's machzir grushasai, that takes back his gerusha. That means he was divorced. He divorced the lady. She went and married somebody else, and now that marriage ended. And now the guy, the first person that divorced her, wants to take her back. So if
she's a kohen.
No, she's not a kohen. No, he's not a kohen. But a dus tumanish, I feel a regular yid is not allowed to take back. If he gives a lady a divorce and she marries somebody else, and that, let's say that second marriage, the person died, he can't take her back because she was married to somebody else. So Abaye would agree that if you mekadesh and didn't do bia, that means you just take a condition, you don't get malchus, because the kachta loy liyas loy liisha marachmanu v'aleka. The Torah says the kedushin has to be like your regular wife, and therefore, if you didn't do bia with her, you're not going to get malchus. Rova would agree. B'kohen gadol ba'almona she involved loy kiddush shaloika. A kohen gadol with an almona, if you did bia and didn't do kiddushin shaloika. You're making the children that are chalalim. So the Torah emphasizes that the point of a kohen gadol be'almana is the main part is the bia, that they're having relations. So even if you did bia and didn't make kedushin, the kohen gadol would get malchus. And both Abaye and Rova would agree. You take back your gerusha, right? Here you did the opposite. You involve a loy kiddush. If you did bia and you didn't do kedushin, so you just went to your ex-wife and you say, let's not do kedushin, but let's have bia. She'ena loika, you don't get malchus, because the Torah says lakachta loy liyas liisha. You have to take her back with kedushin like a regular wife. The Torah said only if you take her back as a wife, like you give her kedushin. But if you just plain have bia with her, you wouldn't get malchus. The Mishnah said, Rabbi Yehuda oimer bas ger zochar kebas cholol. A ger, let's say a ger marries Yisrael, a ger, right? That daughter is like a cholol. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that daughter cannot marry a kohen. He's very strict about that. Tanya, we learned to the Brisa. Rabbi Yehuda oimer bas ger zochar, the daughter of a ger zochar, of a male ger, kebas cholol zochar. It's like the daughter of a cholol. V'hadin noisen, and it makes sense. Ma cholol. A regular cholol, again, a cholol is the product of a kohen who married, let's say, a grusha. So that man, that kohen is now a cholol. The son is a cholol. If he has a daughter, that daughter cannot marry a kohen. So ma cholol sheba metipak shera. Really, the cholol's father is a kohen. He wasn't supposed to marry his mother, but he'd say he comes from Jewish blood. Bitay psula, his daughter is possible to marry a kohen. Ger sheba metipa psula. Ger comes from semen that his father was a goy. Einadin certainly should be the psula that his daughter should be possible. So the Gemara says no. So maybe a cholol is the reason why a cholol could contaminate his daughter is because the cholol himself was created in an avera. A ger, his parents, who are both goyim, he wasn't created in an avera. A goy can marry a goya, so maybe he's very different than a regular cholol. So the Gemara says, kohen gadol ba'almana, a kohen gadol marrying an almana. Now, kohen gadol marrying an almana, the kohen gadol did not do an avera. He was not created. A kohen gadol was a regular yid. He just made a bad marriage. She'ein yitzirasa ba'avera. Nothing happened. The kohen gadol himself didn't do an avera when he was born. He wasn't created with an avera, but Bite Psula, his daughter, is puzzle. So the Gemara says that you still can't compare that. Mala kohen gadol ba'almona can be also by avera. A kohen gadol marrying an almona, he's doing something wrong. So then, but a cholol, but a ger marrying a regular yid, they're not doing anything wrong. So then cholol yechia. The cholol will prove that cholol is not doing anything wrong if he marries Yisrael, and nevertheless his daughter is pasal. Because then you go backwards and forward. They don't have the same common. They don't have the same numerator, so to speak. But atzad the denominator is the same. These things are not by most of the kahal. They're very different. A kohen gadol marrying an almana could create a contaminated daughter, and a cholol marrying a Yisraelis could also make a bad contaminated daughter. Afani obvious a ger she'ena b'roiva kol. A ger is different than any roiva of most of the kahal. Ubita psuli, his daughter should be pasul. So the Gemara says, no, you can't learn it out. There's something an avera involved here. A cholol was created in avera, and a kohen gadol with an almana is doing an avera. So therefore, you can't bring the ger from that. So the Gemara says, a Mitzri marrying a Mitzris proves the whole thing. So the Mitzri marrying a Mitzris, they produce a daughter, let's say, so then that daughter cannot not marry a Kohen, certainly cannot marry another Yisrael. So the Gemara says, then why would you that prove anything by a regular ger that his daughter is contaminated? So then Cholol Yechiach, you prove it from the other way. Cholol, who's marrying Israelis, their children could marry anybody else. They just can't marry a Kohen. But so therefore, then you go back and forth. So the Gemara asks, is that there's something wrong with them because they puzzle the lady with their bia. In other words, when a Mitzri when a cholol has relations with a Yisraelis, the lady becomes a chalola. And when a Mitzri married does something with a Mitzri Sheni, again, they puzzle with their bia. So therefore, how could you bring a ger? So the Gemara says that's precisely why. A ger nami paisel b'biyase. A ger also could puzzle with his with just a ger marrying a kohen, marrying a Jewish lady. The fact that that lady will now forever be puzzled to marry a kohen, even if the ger dies. So therefore, so you bring that proof from that place. In other words, the bottom line is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda is, and just to remember, a ger marrying a Yisrael, the daughter is usher to marry a Kohen. How do you know? Because just like a Cholol marrying a Yisrael, the daughter is usher to a Kohen, and a Mitzri marrying a Mitzri, that daughter not only can't marry a regular Yisrael, can't marry a Kohen either. So from those two, will also include a ger who marries a Yisraelis. Because he's puzzling his wife, the daughter becomes usher to kahuna. So that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. But Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Omer, the Commissioner said, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov had a nice opinion. He said that only if a ger marrying a Giores, the daughter is puzzled to kahuna. But a ger marrying a Yisrael or Yisrael marrying a Giores, the daughter is mutter to kohunya. And then the Mishnah brings Rabbi Yossi. There was an opinion of Rabbi Yossi who said that even a ger marrying a giores, and they both became a giores, then after becoming a Jewish, they had a child. That child is also kosher l'kahen. He's very lenient. And then there's a fourth opinion. Tanya of Shimon ben Yochai, the Shimon ben Yochai says giores pchusim abachshal sham v'yamechad. A giores became, let's say, a 2-year-old girl became a giores. That 2-year-old girl, Kisher Lakota, could even marry a Kohen. Shnema, the Pasuk says, by the Mechemes Midyon, the Chol Taf Benoshim Hachi Lechem. The Torah says that all the babies, all the 2-year-old girls, the Moshe Rabbeinu said, you can let them live. So V'lai Pinchas Imohem, but Pinchas was with them. And therefore, Hachi Mochem means probably that they can marry Jews. But how could a 2-year-old girl who became a Gioris marry a Kohen? Pinchas was a Kohen. Must be that a Gioris who became a Gioris less than 3 years old, a 2-year-old girl became a Gioris, marry a Kohen. V'rabonam, hachi lechem, lavan l'shrachas. The Torah says you can keep them alive, but keep them as slaves and maids, but nothing more. V'kula mikra echad darsha. Amana grusha lo yikul lehem l'nashin kim b'sulas mizera beis Yisrael. Rabbi Yehuda sava adi islay kol zer Yisrael. Rabbi Yehuda says that if there's a ger involved in the between the mother and father, it's aser. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov oimer mizara va'afila mitzazara. Torah the Yecheskel says that even if one of the children is a Yisrael, even if that, then it's kosher to marry a kohen. Rabbi Yossi Sava Mishes Nizra Yisrael. It could even be a ger and a giorish as long as they had the pregnancy happened after they became Jewish. So even a ger marrying a giorish, and they have a daughter. That daughter whose pregnancy was when her parents became Jewish will be kosher l'kohen. And Shimon that she matured in her virginity as a Jew. In other words, she became a Gioris less than 3 years old. She's kosher to the Kahuna. Now, as the Gemara, Amalei Rav Nachman Rava, we go to Amma Beis. Hi, Krab, Reisha, B'Koyin, God will save a B'Koyin Hedya. That end of the Pasuk is, by Yecheskel, seems to talk about a Koyin Hedya. And that's very odd. A pasuk in Navi will start off one direction and switch to another direction, talking about a different subject. The first part of the pasuk talks about a kohen gadol, and then the second part of the pasuk says that a kohen hedyot could marry, that a kohen could marry an almana. So Amalei in. So he answered, yes, sometimes psukim switch their subjects in the middle of a pasuk. And that happens in Navi a lot. It's harder to read Navi than it is to read Chumash. Does the Torah write things that the Chumash write things? Does the Navi write things like that? Amalei en. The pasuk says, let's see by Shmuel, the ner elakim terem yichba, the candle went out in the Beis Hamikdash. Ushmuel sheiche behechechel Hashem. And Shmuel was lying down in the Beis Hamikdash. So how do you read that pasuk? Only a king could lie down in the Beis Hamikdash. So how could the Navi say that Shmuel was lying down in the Heichal Hashem? Ella, you're reading it wrong. The Heichal Hashem belongs in the beginning of the pasuk, and this is how you read the pasuk. Ner lekim tem yichbeh. The Heichal Hashem, the candle just went out in the Heichal Hashem. Ushmuel shoichev, and Shmuel was sleeping, but not in the Beis Hamikdash. Bim kaimoi, in wherever Shmuel was. So that's how you read that pasuk. So now the end of the pasuk again says in Yecheskel, which is a repeat of the halachas of Kohen Gadol, and Kohen is repeated in Yecheskel. And the pasuk says, "Va'almona ashetia almona mikohen yikachu." That a Kohen hedyot who can marry an almona as long as her first husband was a Kohen. So the Gemara asks, how do you read that pasuk? Mikohen and Misrael. Only if her first husband was a Kohen, that's called a legal almana. But if her first husband was Yisrael, then the Kohen can't marry that. That makes no sense. And says the Gemara again, you have to hachi kamar. Mikohen yikacho, mishar kanim yikacho. So this is how you read the pasuk. Almona ashetia almona, an almana who will be an almana from no matter who her first husband is, mikoyin yikachu, other kahanim could take that almana. Tanya nami haki, we learned in the Brisa, mikoyin yikachu means shar kahanim yikachu, other kahanim could take her as a wife. Says the Gemara, Yehuda ayme min amasim lekuna yikachu, that the pasuk is saying a new idea, that those that you can marry their daughter, then you can marry the almana. So let's say there's a Gioris who's an almana. So then since you can't marry their daughter, you can't marry the almana. So he holds a ger marrying a regular Israeli is the daughter is pasul lekahuna. So if that ger dies, that almana cannot marry a kohen. If you can't marry the daughter, you can't marry the almana. So that's how Rabbi Yehuda is going to learn that pasuk, that min hamasiyin lekahuna. Only if you can marry the daughter, then you can marry that almana. We learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi av ger shnasa gioris. So that's a beautiful thing. A ger marrying a gioris, you can marry the daughter. Amar Rabbi Chamnuna mishmei deula halacha Rabbi Yossi. Halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. A kohen can marry the daughter of a ger and a gioris. Halacha Rabbi Yossi. So how come you don't find today? From the day that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the Kahanim were noyeg, silsil ba'atzmam, that they were noyeg something special by themselves. La chumra, Krab Loza ben Yaakov, that they don't marry a Gioris who married a Gioris. They don't marry their daughter. Only if there's a Yisrael in the picture. Only if her parents, one of the parents was a Yisrael, either the father or the mother. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Huna, and this will end. Rav Nachman said, Huna told me, if a kohen comes to ask the rabbi, and he's looking on the Deity Saw You at Sinai website, and Bali Malach, and if he asks us, who should I marry? We tell him that if you want to go into the marry Gioris, then just make sure that one of the parents are Yisraelim, like Reb Lezer ben Yaakov said. But Nasa, if he already got married to a Gioris, whose both parents were from the daughter of a ger and Gioris, if he already married the lady, we don't force them to get a divorce, because really the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, that a ger that marries a Gioris, if they have a daughter, that daughter is permitted to marry a kohen, and it's just a chumrah kohen that doesn't marry them. Okay, we'll stop over here.